Look at the United States. How has it become the world's largest power? Because it had a completely liberalized economy once it rose to the top. Now, this is the instrument which is being completely reversed by the Trump administration. That he now sees that all my industries, which were now the pride of the US economy, are now closed or about to close. And how do I revive this? I want jobs to be created through a reindustrialization process. The US share in manufacturing industry fell, what used to be 30% of GDP. It has now come down to 10% of GDP. So in those circumstances, the idea is that somehow I should re-elevate the share of manufacturing, and this will again increase the share employment in this sector. But I think a recent calculation was pointed out, I think by, I don't know whether it was Krugman or not, that even if they were to do this, a lot of the remanufacturing which would take place would be highly automated, and that this process would at best raise the share of manufacturing in employment in the US by 2% to about 12% of employment, so that there would not be any significant gains to be realized from this particular process. However, this was the objective. Now, the secondary objective, or as an instrument, is of course what we are facing today, and that is the idea of export promotion. Now, the whole business of application of selective bilateral tariffs is really an instrument of export promotion, because the idea is that you are using the instrumentality of tariffs to persuade countries to buy more from the United States in the expectation that this would then close the bilateral trade deficit. Now, of course, as Zaidi has pointed out, since he is much more knowledgeable on this, the whole concept of bilateralizing your trade surpluses and deficits is unheard of in contemporary economics. And you are functioning at a global level, and that's the way you then identify your deficits and surpluses. This set of policies of export promotion and then import substitution has some contradictory elements in this. What may this be? One element is that I want to promote my exports, fine, and if I do that, then the trade deficit will narrow, right? But if the trade deficit narrows, then according to the formula that has been applied, imports will also be reduced. So that if I bring down my deficit to zero, then I will go back to 10% of the import duty. Is that not the way it works? Now, what does this mean for Bangladesh? Now, we have already seen what it has meant, that our tariff rates have gone up 40%, and then we have somehow immediately responded to this by sending off a letter to the US president giving itemized areas in which we want to increase imports from the United States. Now, I'm not quite sure why we were in such a hurry to do this without working out and understanding the full implications. The letter explicitly mentions certain items. Now, the question which we will have to ponder over here, I was asking Mahmood over here about this, is that how is this actually going to work? We have indicated that we will increase imports of a range of goods. Now, as has been pointed out, quite a lot of these have zero duty already, including something like cotton. So how will we then enhance import of cotton? Because there was no tariff barrier for the export of US cotton to the United States. So I don't know, the US shares what, 20% of cotton imports? About that. Now, you are not importing more cotton from the United States because this is a market decision made by Mr. Mahmood and his colleagues in the textile manufacturing sector. They blend cotton, they have the need for different types of cotton, they have different price implications of where they buy their cotton, and they've made market decisions that we will buy 80% of our cotton, quite a lot of it actually coming from India, some from Pakistan, some from Central Asia, some from Africa. And we are buying US cotton. They give certain types of counts of cotton which are necessary to make denims which he manufactures. So in those circumstances, we will buy as much as we need if it is a market economy. Now, I don't know if you have been advising the government when you met them that this will not work and you need to return to Stalinism and go back to a command economy in which Mahmoud will be ordered to import all his cotton from the United States. And then they will be ordered to import all their soya bean from the edible oil industry will be ordered to import an executive order, and you will get 6 months. You will be fined if you do not do that. I mean, they are all private sector people who will be importing their goods from where it is economic for them to actually do so. No, so what I'm saying is that the lack of transparency in any case applies to all imports, not just US imports. I mean, one of the virtues of being a small economy is that you cannot afford to discriminate against anyone. So if you are having wrong policies, they are universally affecting every country with whom you deal with. So it may be sensible, as Zaidi would have preferred, and as it has been suggested in the USTR report, that we eliminate all these adverse practices which are affecting our trading regime. But the beneficiaries will be global beneficiaries, not just the United States. So that once you eliminate all these, then those who are already accessing our market under these circumstances will even further enhance our market and will enhance their exports without automatically benefiting the US. So the US would do a great service to other exporters to Bangladesh by in fact really insisting on this. But none of this would contribute to narrowing the trade gap by enhancing our imports from the US. So that is the particular point that you have to keep in mind over here. That at the end of the day, a protectionist regime is a protectionist for everyone, and moving back away from that into a more liberalized regime will be beneficial. So China will be greatly benefited from that. India will be greatly benefited from that. And that would be the problem we would face. So how Bangladesh therefore reacts to this will really be something which we obviously it has huge ramifications for our economy, and you want to show that you are acting. And what has been done has presumably been done in the best interests of that. But the consequences of that are going to be much more uncertain, because not only are we reacting, already 50 other countries have reacted. And how the US will respond to this will not emerge because you are first in the queue. It will emerge on the size of the transactions involved. So if the trade deficit of Vietnam is $100 billion, in contrast to Bangladesh's deficit of $6 billion, I will not give you any prizes for guessing who the US government will be more responsive to in their negotiations. So you are now living, therefore, in what is known not as a market-driven world, but in a transactional world, right? In which everything is now up for negotiations, and the variables involved in the negotiations are not exclusively related to economics. So many other variables can be brought in. If you want to go to the head of the queue, you may have to put other issues on the table than just the offer of higher imports. What those may be, I have no idea. But what I'm trying to point out is that once you move away from a rules-based, market-driven system into a system of command economics and weaponized trade, then you operate in a completely different world, and you get into a world not of the survival of the most competitive, but the survival of the strongest and the best negotiator.